bum 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 ba da da dum bum bum ba da 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 dum da 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 dum ba da 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 dum bum ba da dum ba da 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 dum da 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 dum ba da 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 dum bum bum bum. Hello, my friends. Hello, mighties. Hello, folks from Facebook and where else do we? Rumble and YouTube and X, and we're all over the place. It's so good to see everyone. So thankful for all the help treating my daughter with homeopathy for a sore throat and free symptoms today as she is trying to care for her 9-month-old. You bet, Randy. Absolutely. Hi from Pennsylvania. Hello from Ontario. Hello from Susanville. I don't know where Susanville is. Wonderful to see everyone. Yes, I see a discussion around remedies and what's available. OHM still got everything you need. OHM is amazing. Hahnemann Pharmacy out west near San Francisco's got remedies. They've got a lot of great remedies. Then, of course, Helios in Great Britain. And Washington's still good. They're still good. Don't worry. Just buy from them. Buy from whoever you like. And stock up. Because it's always better to have too much than not enough. Right? I would say that is probably the best way to look at this. And, you know, the dates are printed on the bottles. You know that. But I have remedies. In fact, tonight. Perry, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love you to get that kit for me. I should have brought that out. The white box kit. Thank you for getting that white box over there. I made some fried calamari, which I usually make pretty frequently. I haven't made it in a while though, and I fried it in butter and in tallow, and I used too much tallow. I mean, it was really deep fried, and I don't think I got it hot enough, and so there was a lot of saturated fat all around these lovely little tubes of calamari, and it was quite delicious. But then right afterwards, my husband and I were both saying, oh, I think we had too much fat. And I eat a lot of fat, my friends. I eat probably half a stick of butter a day, close to that. But this was just, I don't know, it wasn't quite right. I mean, it was delicious. It was fine. So I said, well, I'm going to get out my old kit. This is standard homeopathy. This is a kit that I bought, I think, in maybe 1986. I still have it. Look how old it is. I've had to replace a few remedies here and there. Oh, yes, 29 remedies, larger bottles. See, they're little bigger bottles than what many kits sell today. And so what did I get out of my kit? You tell me, my friends. We were both nauseous. What did I give my husband and me? I'm looking for it right now. Oh, I got it up. I think I put it right here. I did. I'm not going to let you see the name of it. I'm just going to see what everybody comes up with. Nux vomica, is everybody saying pulsatilla? Pulsatilla, Nux vomica. Pulsatilla is probably my better choice because pulsatilla is really great for fats. But more often for fats, it has to do with Nux vomica, Nux vomica, Nux vomica, pulsatilla. See if anybody, that's not what I chose. We were nauseous. Let me say it again. We were nauseous. Both of us. Nat Foss. The Kathy Breed Ipecac. You got it, Kathy. You got it. I took Ipecac and gave it to my husband as well. Can you see it? I think you can see it if I get a really good close-up. Ipecac 30X. Now, these are X's. Now, does it mean that you were wrong? No. Doesn't mean you were wrong at all. That's what I love about this, my friends. What if you didn't have Ipecac or you hadn't thought of it? Could Nux vomica do it? Yeah, it could. Could Pulsa do it? Yes, you could. It could. Could chelidonium do it? Yes, it could. Any one of those medicines are likely to act pretty well. But I happen to know that for me, if I have nausea, which doesn't happen that often to me, but when it happens, I go to this old kit and I get out my Ipecac, and it works every time. Yeah. Oh, someone says take it all together. Ipecac, arsenicum, Nux vomica all together. You don't need to go that far, really. When it's nausea, and that's the prominent condition, that's the one condition that is the most noteworthy, then that's when I automatically think of of Ipecac. Certainly, Nux vomica could have worked if we had overeaten. It's not that we overate; it's that what we ate was really, really nauseating because it was too much fat. Yeah, you were thinking of overindulgence, but it wasn't really overindulgence, and that's the difference. We didn't have wine. We didn't have any alcohol. We didn't eat too much. Oh, I know. I miss Highland's larger bottles, too. It was a great kit. Those are great kits. All right, so what are we going to talk about tonight, my friends? We're going to talk about addictions, different kind of addiction, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do next week, but this week we're going to do hoarding and living in squalor, as well as the foil, the opposite to that, and that is addiction to cleanliness. So I know the medicines automatically. I automatically know them because I've used them for so many years. But I'm going to show you what I would do if I did not know them. So how would we do this? Someone who hoards. If you look in your repertory, if you don't have one, you might want to get one. This is Robin Murphy's 4th edition, Meta Repertory. And you would look in the mind section because this is a psychological behavior, psychological condition. And you would look under, you could look under hoarding. There is no rubric for hoarding. You could look under squalor. Not quite. No, what I looked under was collects many things. Collects many things. So I will find that. I marked it already. Collects many things. And that's on page 44, my friends. Collects many things. And where is it? Is it 44? It might not be. No, it's 4. Yes, it is page 44. Collects many things. There are only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 medicines. Arsenicum, and that is italicized, so that means it's a little more weighty. Calcarea carbonicum, carcinosin, mercurius sol, and bam, really big, bold caps, sulfur. Sulfur. Now, what I love about sulfur is that it is a remedy that not only collects many things, but they can be messy people. They can be unclean people. They can be people, a child who soils his diaper and is 3 years old and just doesn't care. Doesn't notice it, doesn't care. Or a child or someone who doesn't like to take showers, ever. I mean, I'm not a proponent of taking a shower every day. I actually think that's a little over the top. I used to, but now I think a little differently about it. I think it's good to allow our skin to breathe and not have everything washed away at all times. But sulfur would be someone who hasn't washed at all. Their hands are dirty. Their nails are dirty. They don't brush their teeth. They just don't keep up with grooming. So if we've got someone who collects many things, and arsenicum is important because it's italicized, and sulfur is very important, we're going to put a little more emphasis on sulfur. But we're not done, okay? Avarice is also a good rubric we can use. But I also like greedy from anxiety about the future. And that's on page 150. And there we have arsenicum, nux vomica, and phosphoric acid. Arsenicum again, anxiety, greedy because of anxiety about the future. Now, greedy is different than collecting. We know that. But there is an aspect of greediness to it. So we don't want to play too hard. Page 44 collects many things. Yes, page 44 collects many things. That is probably the closest we're going to get to hoarding. Collects many things. Now, why do they collect many things? It could be anxiety about the future, and of course that would mean that we're going to also look at arsenicum, nux vomica, phosphoric acid. But I kind of like this one rubric because I think it says it all. So does anyone remember Professor Irwin Corey? I refer to him a lot. He was a comedian. Used to be on The Tonight Show. I'm talking the 70s, maybe even longer ago. That could even have been the late 60s. You have to be my vintage to remember him. Well, anyway, he wore a white lab coat, and it was always buttoned cockeyed, and he always had food on the outside. It was all soiled, and his hair was a mess. And he spoke. He was a professor, like a mad professor, and he spoke in kind of in circles, but it sounded so. Yes, funny guy, says Leanne. She remembers. Yes, do. He spoke in what sounded very scientific, but he said absolutely nothing. He spoke in circles. And so he sounded, if you listened from a distance and could barely hear what he was saying, or you weren't paying attention, it sounded esoteric, erudite. It sounded sophisticated and scientific. Kind of like the science that we're supposed to be following in the world today. It sounds so, just a little bit of distance, and it sounds like it could be valid. But listen carefully, my friends, a lot of gobbledygook. Anyway, that was the picture, that caricature was the picture of sulfur. Someone who doesn't care about what they look like. They're kind of got their head in the clouds. They don't really care how others perceive them. They don't care. They're messy, they're sloppy, they don't groom. And you can imagine that Professor Irwin Corey's house was not organized, that his office or wherever he worked or his home or his car was littered to the hilt. I'm sure he had lots of empty coffee cups, and wrappers thrown in the car and in the back seat, and all kinds of old food that used to be, that was half finished and all thrown. Professor Commandant Fauci, Peter Hotez. Oh, that bow tie, huh? Anyway, yeah, they say a lot and say nothing. So anyway, that's the quintessential picture of sulfur. Now, we also don't want to just choose it based on that. We want a little more. If we can add a little more to this picture, if when we read the picture of sulfur in a Materia Medica, whether you use my Materia Medica or you use a more in-depth Materia Medica, you read up on it, you find that sulfur people who need sulfur, who happen to be, we're looking for someone who collects many things, who hoards, they are hot. They can be very generous. But they can also be generous with things that have no value. So they might say, let me give this to you. And it turns out it's their collection of plastic bags that used to have bread in them. And they've collected them through the years. And they consider it something quite valuable when really it's just a bunch of used plastic bags. And so if you can find a little bit more that fits with the hoarding picture as well as the other behavioral issues, or they have skin that's rough and itchy, or they're itchy and they're hot and they have an odor and halitosis or body odor, or something is off, or they are they notice odors too readily in others or in rooms or in cars or wherever, sulfur would probably be one of the best remedies for someone who hoards. And so, what potency might we use this in, and how frequently? Let's talk about that. How to get a person who has this problem of hoarding to take this remedy? Well, let me just tell you, the method that we use is you read up on sulfur and see what is in that picture that the person might be suffering from. Maybe they have indigestion. Maybe they have a skin condition. Maybe they're too hot all the time. And you give them the remedy and you tell them this is sulfur and it's for, and then you list those areas that they are most concerned about in their own lives. And then you might find indeed that it will make a difference. 200 daily, says Francine from Newberry. 6 or 12 to start. Leanne says 200. You bet. I would use a 200. I would use a 200. Now, some people think that's too high. I disagree. I think 200 is a medium potency. 200C is what I would use. And I might use it daily. I might use it every few days. If it's someone that you're trying to get to take this medicine and you don't have access to them daily, it's going to be hard to do that. So instead, you go over to have a visit and offer it to them and say, here, take this medicine. It might be useful for your stomach, your skin, and indeed, you're not lying, because indeed that's exactly what this medicine will do. It will do more than just the hoarding, my friends. It will likely touch many other areas. Now, how long will it take? It could take, you might see a little shift over a period of days or weeks. And if you do, then we carry on and we open it up a little bit further. If indeed you're using it every few days and you're seeing a nice shift, then you might have them take it only once a week for a few months, or then once every couple of months after that. Sulfur cured my dog. Sulfur is great for dogs. It's a good remedy for dogs that have odors, they're itchy, they're hot. You get them groomed and they look like heck within a few days. There was another dog that's of the same litter, and you have them groomed and they can stay clean and groomed. But it's these kind of dogs, or these kind of people, for some reason it just attracts uncleanliness and unkemptness. Okay, some of the old of the past who lived through the Depression became more hardwired to save and keep everything. Yeah, you get it. That's right. Absolutely. Would sulfur still be correct if the collecting many things is due to grief? Or imagine that, or might that be Napier? Oh, you might want to give them a medicine for grief. You might want to start with that. Are we certain that it is grief? Better make sure of that. So we would use a medicine that might be for grief first and see how it goes. That might clear it up. And then if that doesn't do it, or it doesn't touch it deeply enough, and don't be, my friends, do not be impatient. Allow these medicines to present themselves. Allow them to be, to finish the work without too much interference. Okay, let me just see. There was another question. Okay, good. My grandmother didn't throw much away, and she hid money in plastic bags, paper bags. I always liked finding her poker money stashes. Father Fauci of the branch Covidians. Oh, you got that right. Those Covidians, I swear. Ignition for grief could additionally help. It could. And I would start with one. I would start with, if it's grief, I would start with the grief medicine. Give that a chance to work. And you might find that indeed he doesn't even need, or she doesn't even need sulfur any further. And it doesn't need a further medicine. Okay, now let's talk about fastidious. Someone who has an addiction to cleaning, addiction to cleanliness. And I would call that fastidious, wouldn't you? And that's on page 121. Let's see, fastidious, page 121. And what do we have here? Page 121, fastidious. We must have about, I'm going to say maybe, I don't know, 70, 80 remedies there. And what's the number one medicine? There are two key medicines here. Arsenicum album, it says ours, capitalized and underlined, and carcinosin. Now, we also have lycopodium, Napier, Ignatia, Platina, Pulsatilla, also very important, but not underlined. but arsenicum and carcinosin are bold and underlined. Now let's say fastidious specifically for cleanliness. That's a little bit further down. And now we've got for, I'm going to show it to you because look how simple this is. I hope you can see it. I always wonder if you can see this because it's really hard for me to, it's backwards, upside down, and sideways for me to show it to you. For cleanliness. It's right where my index finger is. I don't know if you can see that right there. For cleanliness. Fastidious, for cleanliness. Arsenicum, that is italicized. It makes it important. Calcarea carbonicum, carcinosin, nadmur, sepia, and thuya. We know. If you know anything about beginner homeopathy, I want you always to remember that arsenicum album is one of our most fastidious medicines. They're the kind of person who, when you walk into their home, first of all, you're not allowed to wear shoes. Not that that's so bad. When I used to live in the city, I used to insist on that. I didn't want the kids walking around in from the city streets and walk in with their shoes on, or even my guests. So we just got into the habit of everyone taking off their shoes, and we had fun little slippers there waiting for them that were those little silk slippers from Asia, and everyone could put on these cute little embroidered silk slippers. So, but now I don't worry about it so much. I don't live in an area that I have to be concerned about that as much. But the person who would insist on no shoes, and then beside the person who's walked in on their stocking feet, they've got a mop and they're mopping behind them. They can't stand anything out of place. They can be as sick as a dog, laying there in bed, practically dying. And if they look up and see that that there's a spot on the wall, they'll get up and get a cloth, as sick as they are, and wipe off the spot on the wall. That is extreme fastidiousness. Is that so? Is there such a word, fastidiousness? Fastidiality? Fastidiousshipness? So that is for cleanliness. Arsenicum would be the winner as far as I'm concerned. Now, again, I would hope that you would go to your Materia Medica and read up on this medicine, Arsenicum album, and see how it fits in any other way. Because it's important that we have more than one leg on the stool. I'd like to see 3 legs. 3 legs. 1 leg is the fastidious for cleanliness. Number 2 might be anxiety. Anxiety. Arsenicum is one of our great medicines for anxiety. And the 3rd one might be their stomach burns when they eat. So we don't have to have those 3, but we want at least something that will help us shore up our decision and build our argument for arsenicum. Okay. Now what? Now what do we do? What potency? Let's see what you folks think. What potency? Couldn't find it on Facebook, so came here on YouTube. Glad for the option. Staff, please spell the medicines. There you go. She's doing it for us. Okay. Yeah, I would use a 200. I would use a 200. Now, potencies really matter. And so let me tell you this, that when I want to teach you, arsenicum has many different abilities. The nose, very sneezy nose, sneezy, is arsenicum album. A belly that burns, whether it's before eating, after eating, it matters not. A belly that burns is also arsenicum album. There's a lot of great things that arsenicum album will deal with. It's one of our great polycrests. Poly meaning many abilities. So arsenicum album, when you look at arsenicum album 3, you know, the letter 3, look at it as though it is a profile. And it kind of looks like a woman's breast and then a belly. Now forget the breast part, but do think of the belly and think of arsenicum 3, the belly burning in the belly, arsenicum 3. It's a way to remember it. Yes, it can affect every organ. It is a very powerful remedy. But the arsenicum 6, now look at the 6, and it looks like the profile of a nose, doesn't it? If you look like a kind of a Roman nose, arsenicum 6 is all about excessive sneezing. Arsenicum 200 or 30 might be more on the psychological level. Not always, but on the psychological level generally. So I would use arsenicum 200, especially if someone has anxiety as well as this fastidious and mania for cleaning. I would use it in a 200. And how often would I use it? I wouldn't use it that often, maybe every 3 days, 1 dose every 3 days, until the person improves greatly. When they improve, what do? Generally, we stop, right? The medicines go very deep. They'll continue acting even though you've stopped. But if it starts to come back again, what do? We go back to arsenicum 200 and use it perhaps every 3 days. That's the way I like to use homeopathy. It's not the only way. Some people would say you give only 1 dose of arsenicum and you don't go any further and you just let it work its way out for the next 6 weeks. I find that when you're working with clients who you're not meeting with on a regular basis, it's too tight. I like to give them some leeway on their own. All right, what else are we going to talk about? Next week, I'll look at some more questions here. But next week, my neighbor once sprayed and wiped my counters when invited over, took over and had other guests remove their shoes and wash hands. Nothing I said to her when pulled aside mattered. Yet she herself smelled of mildew that day, astounded us all. We humans are not boring. No, we are not boring, are we? By the way, arsenicum album is one of our great medicines for poisoning, for being poisoned. From being poisoned from pesticides, the neighbor sprays pesticides. From being poisoned from even chemicals in a pool. And then would I be interested in giving a Monday night class concerning Marburg virus? Yeah, we could talk about that. That's certainly a possibility. So next week we're going to be talking about I just sent it off. We're going to be talking about addiction to sugar. Addictions to sugar and carbs. So for that Marburg concern, my friend, one of the best ways to learn how to deal with that is to take my course, to go to Joette's Learning Center and take my course called Antibiotic Alternative. Even though it's a virus, and viruses and antibiotics are not compatible, nonetheless, well, are they not compatible? I'm not sure that's exactly the word. But they are antibiotics are generally not used for someone who has a virus. But the point is that you will learn how to deal with these kinds of things. And it will lighten the burden, my friends. That's what homeopathy does. It lightens the burden. Why? Because you have answers. Because it all becomes so... All of the scary things that are intended to freak us out become comical even. Then we know what's up their sleeve. We know that it's really not at all what they say. You know, I used to work in media. I've talked about this before. I used to work for NBC. I was an account executive, which meant that I sold airtime. And that was back in the early 80s. And what I saw there was disturbing in terms of what what the news was allowed to put on. If our accounts said no, it didn't get on the news. That was just the beginning, just the start of all of this. So my rule of thumb is if they tell you to be fearful, don't be. That's not what we should be fearing. Whatever the media tells us to do, think the opposite. That's the best I can tell you. without being more specific than that. All right, my friends, it is 8:30 Eastern time. I have to go. I'm teaching a class tonight. And for those of you who don't know what that means, if you've never joined a Gateway study group, I urge you to do that as well. Go to Joette's Learning Center, look at Gateway to Homeopathy so that you can learn how to use this medicine yourself. If you've done it before, you've been in one of those Gateway classes, you should consider running one. You can make a living doing this, my friends. I don't know if you know that, but you can charge others to join your class. They purchase my manuscript, and then you charge additional to join your online class or your living room class or your church basement class. And you do more than one class. I used to do 5 classes a week, 5 different groups every week when I first started out. That's how it worked. That's how I started in my practice. Faith over fear. You've got it, Maxine. You've got it. You bet. Love you all. Have a great week, and I'll see you next week. God bless you. Bye now. With our homeopathic protocols, you learn your remedies. My family needs me, so I must know our remedies. How much to take, how often to treat, and when to stop, and when to repeat. With our homeopathic protocols, you learn your remedies. Athusa no dairy, it's elementary with arnica head, arsenicum fed, spigelia slither, orms from wither, no more firm. My family needs me, so I improve my memory. Not only the rems, but how often to treat, and when to stop, and when to repeat. With your homeopathic protocols, learn your remedies. Bella so red and arnica head, drosera bark, ignatia dark, source of frigid and cupim to rigid, and crude itches, calicum, barnicum, let it melt on your gum, bovies to wheat are some great ways to treat ya. La 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 la, homeopathic protocols, learn your remedies. With our homeopathic protocols, you learn your remedies. My family needs me, so I must know our remedies. How much to take, how often to treat, and when to stop, and when to repeat. With our homeopathic protocols, you learn your remedies. Athusa no dairy, it's elementary with arnica head, arsenicum fed, spigelia slither, orms from wither, no more firm. My family needs me, so I improve my memory. Not only the rems, but how often to treat, and when to stop, and when to repeat. With your homeopathic protocols, learn your remedies. Bella so red and arnica head, drosera bark, ignatia dark, source of frigid and cupim to rigid, and crude itches, calicum, barnicum, let it melt on your gum, bovies to wheat are some great ways to treat ya. La 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 la, homeopathic protocols, learn your remedies.
With our homeopathic protocols, you learn your remedies. My family needs me, so I must know our remedies. How much to take, how often to treat, and when to stop, and when to repeat. With our homeopathic protocols, you learn your remedies. Athusa, no dairy, it's elementary. With arnica head, arsenica fed, spigelia slither, orms from wither, no more infirm. My family needs me, so I improve my memory. Not only the rems, but how often to treat, and when to stop, and when to repeat. With your homeopathic protocols, learn your remedies. Bella so red and arnica head, drosera bark, ignatia dark, source of frigid and cuprum to rigid, and crude itches, calicum, barnicum, let it melt on your gumbo, vista weed are some great ways to treat yellow. La 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 la, homeopathic protocols, learn your remedies.